Once you have finished putting the Sharpie and the paint onto your metal tooling, it is time to add it to the border. So you need this white piece of, it's called railroad board. It's a little bit thicker than paper. Now you will notice that one side is matte or not shiny, and one side is a little bit shiny. We're actually going to have the shiny side be the back. The Sharpie doesn't really color on the shiny side as nicely. So on the smoother, shinier side, you are going to write your name, your unit, and your class number. Okay, so on the non-shiny side, we're going to be gluing this on. Now it's hard to know exactly where to put it. Most of you will try to center these. However, if you decide that you want your design to be purposely off center or at a slant or an angle, then you have to just figure out where it's going to go on your own paper. But for the majority of you, we're going to center them. And rather than just trying to use your eyes to center them, what we're going to use is a little bit of a guide. Now, the metal tooling is 5 inches by 5 inches, and your paper is 9 inches by 9 inches. So you should have a 2-inch border on all the way around. This is 2 inches by 2 inches, so it should line up. So in order to know approximately where to put your metal tooling, you line this up with one of the corners and you make a little dot. Okay, so now if you were to take your metal tooling and put the corners on those dots, that is centered. Okay, so we are going to be gluing them down with Elmer's glue, and the key to this is you actually do need a good amount of glue. If you put glue on the parts that are really pushed out, it's not going to do any good because it's not touching the paper. So you're going to put glue along the perimeter, along the outside. And then in the middle, just in a few more spots that are not pushed out. A few dots. Now this is a good amount of glue because we really want a good bond. But don't put too much because you don't want it to get onto the border really ugly. And now you're gonna try to put some pressure. Now, this takes a while to dry. It wiggles. If you were to move this around, it will wiggle around. So you really do need to hold it for a couple of minutes to let it set. If you notice any glue escaping, don't let it dry like that. Immediately take your finger or take a paper towel and wipe it away. After holding this in place for a few minutes, you can start to work on your design. However, you have to be really careful because it will sort of cling while the glue is still wet, but it takes a full day for it to really set completely, or at least a few hours, more than our class will be. So if you were to push on it, it will move. So you don't want to do that. You need to be kind of cautious with it, kind of careful with it until at least the next class. But you can, once it sort of settles a little bit, once it's not popping up too much, you can start to work on your border. Now, the first thing you need to do is extend the dividing lines. Mine happen to be somewhat straight, so I think mine are sort of straightforward. I'm just going to continue these lines out. Okay. If I wanted to be really exact, I could have used a ruler, but I'm okay with them not being exact. However, yours might not be as straightforward. Maybe yours curve around. Maybe there's something else that happens out here. Maybe this is just a shape and then something's around it. It really depends on your design and how you want to continue them onto the border. And then once you have done that, you have to figure out how your shapes are going to continue. Okay, so this one is pretty straightforward. I have this pattern that continues these lines. Now I would continue my pattern out. Because I had done the black paint, it makes sense for me to then continue to trace this with Sharpie. I would then also continue the color. So I would keep going, but you can see how the pattern can continue. Now notice the color of the Sharpies does change from working on metal to working on the paper. So accept that from the beginning that it won't be exact, but it is close. And you just want to go nice and carefully, nice and slow, and nice and neat. You don't want to be scribbling this or rushing it. You really want it to line up nicely and continue.